Okay, let's start over. Today I would like to, now I see. I would like to welcome you to Live Without Limits. And today we're talking about behind every strong person, there is a hidden pain, silent battles, and emotional journey that shape your strength. This is the podcast where we dive in deep into personal growth, emotional healing, mindset transformation, and discovering the strength that already exists within you. Today's episode is titled Behind Every Strong Person is a Story, and I want to begin by saying something important. Strength is really born from comfort. Most truly strong people do not become strong because life was easy. They become strong because life forced them to survive things they never imagined they had to endure. Behind confidence, there may have been insecurity. Behind resilience, there may have been heartbreak. Behind wisdom, there may have been trauma. Behind independence, there may have been abandonment. Behind success, there may have been years of failure, rejection, or self doubt. The truth is, we often admire people's strength without knowing the story that created it. We see the smile, but not the suffering. We see the achievement, but not the sacrifice. We see the confidence, but not the emotional battles they fought privately. And sometimes the strongest people are the ones that silently carry the heaviest burdens. Today, we're going to talk about how pain often shapes strength, why people hide their struggles, the emotional cost of pretending to be okay, how adversity changes identity, how connection become vulnerability and healing. And why the story matters more than you think. Because behind every strong person is a story that changed them forever. So let's first talk about the strength that is often born through struggles. Most people do not wake up one day emotionally strong. Strength is usually developed through disappointment, heartbreak, rejection, loss, failure, trauma, loneliness, survival. Pain is a way of transforming people. Sometimes life puts people in situations where they have no choice but to grow emotionally stronger. And while strength is admirable, many strong people never ask to become strong in the first place. Some people become strong because they had to raise themselves emotionally. They lacked support. They survived toxic environments. They learned not to depend on others. They experienced betrayal. They endured emotional pain. Strength often develops as protection. People learn how to hide emotions, how to survive disappointment, how to keep moving despite pain. But surviving something and healing from it are not always the same thing, and many strong people are still healing from things they taught them to be strong. So, let's go back and discuss some of the things that we have been talking about here, which all tie into the reasons that we become and how strength is born. Because a lots of times we don't realize why we do the things we do, or what we do, or how to emotionally put ourselves in a position where we can gain that strength. And I can tell you that in a lot of ways, the strength that I got came from the point that I had to do one thing, and one thing for sure. That was that when the time came, because I grew up in a home where it was very negative, and I was always being told what I couldn't do, not what I could do. And to tell me I can't do anything is like putting a red flag in front of me and daring me to prove you wrong. And that's because my personality was such that I was very outgoing. And it helped me deal with the fact that I grew up with a disability at a time when society did not accept its disability community. And therefore, it was up to me to decide whether or not I was going to allow other people to tell me how I can do things, or whether or not I was going to do things because I was not someone that was going to sit still and sit in a corner and just vegetate. I always had to be active. And my story is that, in essence, due to the things that happened to me early on in life, I ended up becoming a disability rights advocate. And because I couldn't find gainful employment, that what I had to do was look for ways to earn an income for myself. When I started podcasting almost just 20 years ago, the term podcast hadn't been coined yet. Therefore, it was up to me to decide whether or not I was going to live the life I was meant to have, or allow other people to tell me what I could or couldn't do. And then what I decided was that I wanted to be an active participant in my life. I wanted to choose what I wanted to do, and I was not about to let others decide how I should live my life. But it's common that as children, we need to be taken care of and we need to be guided. But as we get older, as we begin to make decisions for ourselves, we have to be allowed to do the things that and learn how to take control of our lives. Because a parent can want to take care of their children, but when they're not there, that child has to survive on their own. And if you do not allow your child to go and live the life they were meant to have, what is going to happen to them when you're gone? Therefore, for some people, finding that strength is so important, and how it comes from within you. Now, let's talk about the hidden stories that people carry. Everyone you meet is carrying a story that you may know nothing about. That person who seems confident may have battled years of insecurity. The person always helping others may secretly feel emotionally exhausted. The successful entrepreneur may have experienced painful failure before finding success. The person who makes everyone laugh may privately struggle with loneliness. People become experts at hiding pain. Why? because many people fear being judged, appearing weak, burdening others, rejection, vulnerability. So they smile, they keep going, they show up, they perform strength. But emotional pain does not disappear simply because someone hides it well. Some people have mastered survival while silently suffering. And this is why compassion matters, because you never truly know what someone else had to overcome just to become who they are today. And this is so important because everyone wears a mask and they don't want you to see the true story of what's really going on in their lives. Therefore, it's up to you to learn, to understand, and to deal with society and your own feelings in a way that helps you begin to understand. And this is why we take assessment profiles, because assessment profiles help us understand what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and how to utilize people who have a strength in an area where we have a weakness. Understanding how to take all this, how to make it all work. Therefore, it is up to you to decide exactly how you are going to take and make your life what you truly want it to be. And this is why we need to recognize that when we see someone, what their experience is, until you get to know them and you know their background, you don't truly know what they really went through. Therefore, it is important to not judge people based on what you see on the outside. And I can tell you this much, that I have a younger sister that my mother always knew had a problem making friends, but she covered up for her. Even when she was in the workplace, she never stayed in the same school more than a year. She never got along with her principal. She never got along with her other teachers. And you know what? My mother always made excuses for her and allowed her to become the one who took and cared over all the financial and make the decisions. And she's very jealous of what other people have. All she ever talks about, she and my mother, they would be sitting there talking about the kind of home you had, the kind of car you drove, the kind of clothes you wore. And these things should not be important. It's just a matter of teaching yourself how to live the life you were meant to live based on your personal experiences, because no two people are alike. Each of us have our own unique strengths and our own unique weaknesses, because what one person is good at, the person sitting next to them may not be good. I know that in a lot of ways, the only kinds of jobs that I could get were telemarketing jobs. Why? Because I can speak very well. But I get bored saying the same thing over and over again, sitting in a cubicle, not being able to get up and move when I want to, and not just constantly dialing one number after the other. Understanding that helped me understand where my strengths were. And that's why, if you've never taken an assessment profile, it is important to understand that you need to learn where you are and how you like to communicate. Because if you're one type of personality and this person is a different personality, and you're talking to them in the way you like to speak to someone, they're going to take it wrong. They're going to misinterpret it. But if you understand their personality and you adapt your communication to them, then this is how you help to enforce and allow people to be able to communicate and have healthy relationships. Now, let's talk about the emotional cost of always being strong, because your strength helps you get from where you are today to where you want to be. Therefore, it's up to you to decide exactly how you're going to do things in order to be the person you truly want to be. One of the hardest roles people play is becoming the strong one in the family, the strong friend, the dependable leader, the person everyone leans on emotionally. But constantly being strong can become emotionally exhausting. Strong people often feel like they cannot break down. They must hold everything together. They always need to be okay. Asking for help means weakness, and over time, emotional pressure builds internally, and some strong people become emotionally numb. Others experience burnout, anxiety, depression, emotional isolation, chronic stress, because strength without emotional support eventually becomes heavy. Even strong people need rest, comfort, understanding, healing, emotional safety. And one of the healthiest things a person can learn is this: do you not have to suffer silently to prove your strength? And this is where we really understand exactly how we can relate to what's going on around us and understand exactly what we mean when we're talking about the emotional cost of always being strong. Because you can't be strong all the time. And it's important that you understand we all have an inner strength, that that strength that allows us to deal with things that happen to us on a daily basis. But it does when you don't have someone that puts their arms around you and tells you it's okay, or tells you I'm right there with you, I believe in you. Then somewheres along the time, and I can tell you this from experience, there's always times when I've thought, how would things have been different for me if this had been different, or if that had been different, or if I'd had the opportunity to experience someone caring for me and showing me love and showing me what it means to not have to deal with everything myself. We just need to learn how to relate to ourselves and how to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel, and understand that there are times when you're going to need to take time out. And by doing so, how you do things in order to regenerate what goes on with you. This is why we take a vacation. This because when you do a job and you're working 8 to 10 hours a day and doing the same thing, if you don't take time out for yourself and just relax, then you are going to experience burnout. So it's important for every one of us to decide exactly where we are and what it is that we want in our lives. Now, let's talk about the vulnerability that is part of real strength and understanding how to take that and deal with it. Many people confuse vulnerability with weakness, but vulnerability actually takes enormous courage. It takes courage to admit you're struggling, express emotions honestly, ask for help, confront painful memories, let people see the real you. The real strength is not emotional suppression. It's real strength is emotional honesty. Strong people are not people who never cry. They are people who continue moving forward while allowing themselves to feel. Vulnerability creates healing because it removes emotional isolation. When people finally open up about their pain, their fears, their struggles, their trauma, their insecurities, they often discover they are not alone. And sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, I'm not okay right now. Be honest. It creates connection, and connection is deeply healing. Now, we need to understand what it means to be vulnerable because we're all vulnerable at some point. And we need to know when to take ourselves out of situations that are harmful to us. And we need to learn to recognize, are we choosing healthy relationships? Are we communicating effectively? Or is it a bad relationship? Because we all want to say everything is perfect in our lives, everything is good. But you know what? Everything is not good. Everything is not perfect. It's just helping you understand exactly where you are and how you got where you are today. Now, let's talk about your story and how it shaped who you became. Because every story every story has a starting point and it shapes us to who we are. Because think about it, those people who went through depression and where when people don't have money, then that influenced how they saw their lives. And for some people who never had food in the house, as when they were in a position to have food, it's as though they constantly had to have food because they remember what it was like during the depression when you had nothing. So every experience in your life shapes who you are, and your struggles taught you lessons. Your disappointments changed your perspective. Your hardships developed resilience. But many people carry shame about this story. They think nobody would understand. My pain doesn't matter. I should be over this by now. Talking about it makes me weak. But your story is part of your humanity, and often the parts of yourself that you try hardest to hide are the very parts that connect you to others most deeply. Your story matters because it shapes your strength, it shaped your empathy, it shaped your wisdom, it shaped your resilience, and your experiences may one day help someone else survive theirs. Sometimes your survival becomes someone else's hope. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my story so you understand why and how I ended up being where I am today. Because this is why I am have become a very much an advocate for disability rights, and many years ago became very active in services and organizations to deal with disability rights. I grew up with a disability at a time when there were no laws that guaranteed people with disabilities the right to an education. And very much because of the faith that I grew up in, education was very important. And because of that, and because my mother looked at my education as something to keep me busy and active and out of the home, she didn't see that education to be a means towards an end. But for me, because my personality was to be very outgoing, and I grew up in an era when people around me, because they didn't understand what my disability is and they didn't see the disability, mine was very visible. But at the same time, their attitude was, oh, if you touch her, you'll get what she has. And you cannot get what I have unless it happened to you during the birth process. And yet, I was ostracized and had very few friends because of that. But the one thing that I learned was how to be strong, because I had no one to lean on. I went home, I had a family that was very negative, very critical, and very non-supportive, and all they ever told me was what I couldn't do, not what I could do. And I learned because of that I was going to prove them wrong. And my mother did not want me living on my own and would not help me financially. And when I told her what I wanted to do with my business, even though I never asked her for a dime, all she heard was I wanted her money. And then decided that she was going to write me out and basically take away my rightful inheritance, because she was going to prove to me that I had to bow down to her to get anything from her. And you know what? I was homeless on 3 different occasions because of that. But because I had the determination to succeed, I always found a way to get out of it, because my issues were things of being able to be independent. And they hated that I was so independent. They totally wanted me dependent on them. Healing the strong person within you. If you spent most of your life being that strong one, this segment is for you. You deserve healing too. You deserve moments where you don't have to hold everything together. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to carry everyone else's emotionally situations on you. You can simply exist honestly. Healing begins when strong people stop believing they must carry pain alone. Here are some of the ways to begin healing emotionally. Stop suppressing your emotions. Your feelings are valid. Ignoring pain does not erase it. Allow yourself to rest. You are not a machine. Mental and emotional exhaustion are real. Talk to someone safe. Therapy, coaching, support groups, trusted friendships, or journaling can help release emotional pressure. Practice self-compassion. Stop criticizing yourself for struggling. You've survived more than most people realize. Release the need to always appear strong. You are human first. Not every moment requires performance. Acknowledge how far you've come. Sometimes we focus so much on what's still hurting that we forget how much we've already overcome. Take a moment to recognize your resilience. You survived things that once felt impossible. Strength and healing can coexist. One of the biggest misconceptions about healing is that strong people shouldn't struggle, but healing is not linear. You can be strong and still healing, resilient and still emotional, successful and still overwhelmed, wise and still learning, confident and still human. Strength and vulnerability are not opposites, they work together. True emotional wellness welcomes when people stop trying to become invincible and instead become authentic, because authenticity creates freedom, and freedom begins when you stop hiding the story behind your strength. Now, as we close today's episode, I want to remind you of this. Behind every strong person is a story of pain, a story of survival, a story of growth, a story of resilience. And if you've been carrying everything silently, I want you to know this. You do not have to carry them alone forever. Your strength is admirable, but your healing matters too. You are allowed to rest, to feel, to speak honestly, ask for help, heal emotionally, because true strength is not pretending that you're unaffected by life. True strength is continuing to grow through what tried to break you. So thank you for joining me on Live Without Limits. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone you may need encouragement today. And remember, your story is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that you survived.